So, even though you weren't here, Michael, don't worry. We're attaching this to last week's class, but it's a standalone class. Last week's class, I'm going to take this out because the last few weeks we had issues. So just in case, I just remember that. I forgot to do it. Hold on. Okay.
We're not sharing screens anymore.
Right. We can't share the screen, whatever. Okay, let's go. So last week we spoke about a mamzer. It was in last week's part that the mamzer cannot marry regular Jewish girls.
Right.
Or mamzeros can't marry regular Jewish boys. That was last week's class. During the class, we somebody behind the camera said that this is a good topic. We stopped in the middle. We should do more of this. So we're going to continue, but we have a way in to continue. So we have like this in this week's parsha on page 1075. We have what's called the blessings and the curses. This is not the cursing admonition, if that's the word they use, admonition of this week's parsha, which is maybe the longest chapter in the Chumash. That is not. Before that, it has Moshe Rabbeinu telling them, command them on that day, saying that these will happen when you bless on Har Grizim and you curse the Jews as well. Not curse the Jews, but you do the blessing of the curses. What's fascinating, when you read this, it almost seems that this is occurring at live event Moshe Rabbeinu in this week's parsha. That is not what this occurred. This occurred with Yeshua. Moshe Rabbeinu was not involved with the Har Grizim and Har Evel. That's when they crossed over halfway through, whatever it was. This is a later on event. But Moshe Rabbeinu was giving the instructions of what was going to occur. And he said certain tribes are going to stand on one side, certain tribes stand on the other side. It's a whole event that is also discussed in sight. And in this thing, it's very strange to understand. The Torah says there's going to be blessings and cursings, and Rashi says right away, even though the Torah only lists the curses, there was a blessing as well. So, for example, I'm just going one of the curses I randomly picked. It says, curse who causes a blind man to go astray. They also said, blessed is the man who doesn't cause a blind man to go astray. But the Torah never listed the blessings, even though they're mirror image. It only listed the curses, which is an entire conversation we're not going to get into. But what's odd is, in these curses, which is an argument that actually how many of these are standalone, how many other, roughly 11, maybe 12, depends on you count them up, not for tonight. But of these curses, okay, is that the worst thing, or is that the worst thing of all time? Like what's going on with these curses specifically? I mean, doesn't say eat on Yom Kippur. What does it say? So we're going to discuss the first one because it leads in. Page 1075. First one says like this. And what we read this, we've done this in the past. When you would read a pasuk in the Torah with the oscolations, with the oscol explanation, you will not come up with the conclusion that sometimes that the Gemara does. We've done this in many classes. Maybe we shall leave to some of them. How the Gemara is interpreting things completely different from what we have. But the Gemara understands they had it from a tradition. So here's the first one, verse 15. Accursed is the man who will make a graven or molten image. Makes an idolatry, make an idol. Develop the creator of an idol. An abomination of Hashem, a craftsman's handiwork. And place it in secret, which is very strange. It's almost implying that if you make an idol, but you're public about it, you're not so bad. So, okay. And this is a curse. And the entire people spoke up and they said, Amen. Just to show you the next one. A curse is one who degrades his father and mother. Fine, people said, Amen. And it's a bunch of these. So what are these different than all of them or not? We have to figure out what makes these unique, that they're getting curses among them, but these are the 613 commandments. Okay. Now here goes the Talmudic passage. We're not sharing the screen. But the Talmudic passage was in Saita 30. You remember what I said, Keith? 37. Should have opened this up beforehand. 37b. Right? Yeah. And it says like this.
Yeah. 37b.
37b, right? Oh, mind blowing. Rabbi Yehuda ben Nachmani. Let's get this inside. Rabbi Yehuda ben Nachmani, the lecturer. Another strange word to quote him. Of Shimon ben Lakish. So in here it's Maturgman, means like the mouthpiece. In the old days, no microphones. What they had is the rabbi would speak in an X amount of tone, and the guy standing next to him, the rabbi standing next to him, would pronounce it. But really, it's a very strange introduction to this Talmudic passage, which we're not going into tonight. But just know, you'll know what it sounds like. Rabbi Yehuda ben Nachmani, the lecturer, I don't know what word the lecturer, the speaker of Shimon ben Lakish. Is he quoting Shimon ben Lakish? Is this his own statement? Did he stand alone statement? A little strange. Anyway, expounded the entire section. Now those words itself, you could spend a week on. He says the entire section of the blessing and curses, that's the way they're reading it, refers to none other than an adulterer and adulteress. What does that mean? Make a graven house. She said, it states, obviously you should have thought like this. Cursed is the man that makes a graven or molten image. Does that mean curse the man makes as a multi? No. Does it suffice to merely curse such a person? A guy, we don't know we asked this question. What is the curse as opposed to the 11 laws? So he's learning curse means almost, I'm not sure, that it's limiting. So he says, he's only getting cursed, the guy who makes a graven image? But it can't be that. He's much worse. 7 on bottom says, the penalty is death. So it's got to be worse. So I'll tell you what it means. It means the one who has immoral relations and creates a child who goes to live among non-Jews and he worships idols. Cursed be the father and the mother of this man, since they caused this whole situation. So you're reading these words in a Chumash, and you're never coming up with this. Not in 1,000 years are you going to say that don't create a molten image is going on the adulterer who created a child who went off the derech and started doing idolatry. Now, when it says this entire passage, does that mean everything in this entire passage is only referring to an adulterer? What about the one that says, one who caused a blind man to go astray? What does the entire passage mean? So it's a great debate. The easy way we're going to bring down right now, the easy way is that if you look to the other side of it, which we're not going to show, we can't do. If you look to the right side of the screen, which we can do, the right side of the screen seems to be written funny. There's a lot of blank space on this page here. The blank space on the page is because in the Torah there's blank spaces on the page. Why is the Torah blank space? Because that's called, between these lines are called separate parshas. The blanks is like a new paragraph. It's called in Judaism that word paragraph, they were parsha. So the easiest way to understand it is that when it says the entire parsha, he's not referring to the entire page, because that doesn't make any sense. Some of them might not be related to an adult or adulteress. Some might explain the other way. But it means that first verse, the first verse of one, who's a curse, will make a grave in a molten image, an abomination of Hashem, that means an adult or adulteress. The rest might not. Now, other rabbis, no, they explain each one, how it fits in, and how they are. In fact, I might be correct. Even I think Rashi in Site, it's a Rashi someone explains that no, read the entire one. It's a long Rashi here, and Rashi says, I'm not going to go through all Rashi. We shouldn't really. It says don't embarrass your parents. You don't embarrass your parents. It's the guy who's an adult child. What do they do with this kid? The wife's not going to admit that she had the baby. She knows she can't tell the husband she had the baby. She's going to throw this baby away. Have the husband in the middle of that? I'm not sure. Throw the husband away, throw the baby away, and the baby is a random bad person because he wasn't loved as a parent, and he's going to curse out random people, including that guy. You didn't realize that guy was his father or mother. So even though it says over here, cursed is the one who curses his parents, and we would assume it means a regular guy who curses his parents. That's what it's familiar. No, Rashi's explaining it. It's a long Rashi. Maybe I should have done it. We had the article. And Rashi explains that each one of these curses is going on the child of the adulterer. Well, the adulterers who created the child, who created all these problems. But others learn not this way. Rashi. Others learn, no. The Rashi means that one line. But that gave us an excuse to continue last week's as per the request and continue on the mamzer. Because clearly, as we said last week, a mamzer child is not necessarily produced from a single boy and a single girl. A mamzer child can be incestuous, if that's the right word. It also could be from a married woman. So if this is discussing a married woman and the child runs away, the child is running away probably because it's a mamzer child. So we figure we will use that to continue to approach what we discussed last week about mamzerim and what they are. So this is the question we're going to have. The mamzer child goes to the guy. Get ready to get mind-blown possibility. So it says there on the next link, which we don't have in front of us, the next link is talking about writing a Sefer Torah. There are rules on who can write a Sefer Torah. So for example, male, not female. Okay? So again, who is allowed to write a Sefer Torah? Shulchan Aruch, Code of Laws, Rabbi Yosef Karo, 1500s, writes that there are some, very interesting way of writing, there are those who say that a mamzer is disqualified from writing a Sefer Torah. One of the 613 commandments, by the way, might be to write a Sefer Torah, which really ideally means you write it. You pay someone, you write it. A mamzer is disqualified from writing, possibly, he doesn't say this hopefully, disqualified from this mitzvah. That means not every female is obligated all the mitzvahs. Not females obligated. Not Yisraelim are obligated in certain mitzvahs. Not people living in Chutz La'aretz in America are obligated in every mitzvah. I have a new one now. A mamzer is not obligated to write a Sefer Torah. Interesting. And you look to the side there. I don't know if the Sfari does it. You look to the side of the Shulchan Aruch. There's a Shach, 1600s. And the Shach writes that, by the way, you should know, a mamzer. Why would a mamzer that he's not obligated in all mitzvahs? What's going on here? So he says there are those that say that when a mamzer is going to write a Sefer Torah and come to the words that a mamzer is negative, can't marry regular Jews, that pasuk has Hashem's name in it. That was last week's parsha. Has Hashem's name. he's not going to think positively about Hashem at that moment he's writing this. He's not going to have the proper intent writing Hashem's name in a Sefer Torah when the proper intent is all negative about him. Therefore, we tell the guy, you're out. Now, normally you would say, no, yeah, maybe don't write that one person. Write the rest of it. No. A mamzer is out. And he adds on some words. Every word of the Shach 1600s has to be read seriously. There are many, many mitzvahs that a mamzer is not obligated in. Interesting, right? Why would we assume that a mamzer is not obligated in mitzvahs? How am I getting to this question right now? Because I use my excuse to get in. It says here the mamzer ran away and he went to do idolatry and we're cursing out the parents, right? Because we're not cursing out the child, we're cursing out the parents. It looked like the guy making an idol, making the element the parents who created the child deserve the idol. Is the mamzer obligated in idolatry? Or is he not obligated in this mitzvah? Is a mamzer correct for saying, oh, I don't know, I got those Jews, I'm not obligated yet. Of course I'm walking away from this religion. I'm not part of that religion. Or we say, no, mamzer not. And we have a shach right now saying, vague terminology, they don't have it in front of us. Harba, I think he said the word harba twice. Harba mitzvahs. Many mitzvahs. Now, I don't know what many mitzvahs mean. If a guy was told you're not obligated many mitzvahs, can you do idolatry? Are you allowed to walk away from the religion? It sounds like a little bit of a stretch that I'm coming up with tonight, but let's discuss. Now, many other commentators say, oh, no. Moms has got to be obligated on mitzvahs. And by the way, we're not even going to agree with the Shulchan Aruch. We're going to say moms can write a Sefer Torah. What are you talking about? Why is he doing anybody else? That's what we're going to discuss now. Is the mom's obligated? So we have one for sure, maybe. When it comes to writing a Sefer Torah, we have a maybe on the mom's. We're going to discuss a few more in a second. Now, some point out, fascinating, not brought down in the Rambam. I'm about to say it's not a Rambam. What I'm about to tell you, you could literally write hundreds of pages. I have a friend of mine who's eventually going to publish a book, and he showed me he has hundreds of pages on this. Hundreds. There's an Avos to Rav Nosson. That's like Masechta Avos. Avos to Rav Nosson is not in the regular Masechtas. Do you have an Avos to Rav Nosson or Masechta Avos?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So Avos to Rav Nosson is one of these interesting Masechtas. It's not in the regular Shach. It's a serious thing. In Avos to Rav Nosson, which is fascinating stuff in general, it states a law. Now, the Rambam doesn't rule like this. You have to know why the Rambam doesn't rule like this. Or does the Rambam rule like this somewhere else and it's snuck in, no one realized. But the Rambam doesn't, let me change the word. The Rambam doesn't openly rule about the stuff. The Avos to Rav Nosson throws in what we call derech hagav. Subliminally, at one point it says, a mamzer is prohibited from entering Jerusalem. Cannot enter into Jerusalem. That's what it says. A mamzer can enter Jerusalem. That means automatically many of the 613 commandments cannot be applicable to a mamzer. Everything that revolves around the Beis Mikdash, everything that revolves around sacrifices, many of these laws are out. And by the way, that's not 2 or 3 halachas. That's a long list. So it would mean automatically, a mamzer, if you go to Zavos to Rav Nosson, unbelievable. I did not know this. Is it word for word? I would have.
It's 8 chapters, volumes 1 and 2, and it's probably limited to what they translate.
Incredible. I wish I knew. I should have wrote down all kinds of Zavos to Rav Nosson, but I'll tell it to you. Incredible. And this became a big thing. The Zavos to Rav Nosson said that a mamzer does not go into Jerusalem. Rambam doesn't openly state. You could literally write 100 pages on whether the Rambam agrees to this or not. People come up with genius ideas where the Rambam said it by saying A, it meant B. But there's a problem. And this is how the whole conversation, this is how you get the 500 pages. 100 pages is what does the Rambam say. Yeah, you get the 500 pages because Michael's word, every word I say, he listens to. I said 500 pages. Because there's a Mishnah in Hurrius, we can't link to, which is on the thing. Oh, I didn't link that one. The Mishnah, Hurrius, if I remember correctly, it's 11b, if you're going to link it later on. The Mishnah says, what happens when 2 people meet each other? Who comes first? Who comes first? Boy, girl, who comes first? Older son, younger son. One guy carrying a load, one guy not carrying a load. You know what it says over there? A mamzer, who's a genius in Torah study, Talmudic scholar, versus a Kohen, Gadol, high priest, who is ignorant. We've had those. Sadly to say, we've had a list of Kohanim Gedolim who were ignorant people, didn't survive long. Some of them died within less than a year at their job, if you remember history. But we have those people. What happens when they two meet? I know what the answer is. The Mishnah says, yeah, Mamzer Talmud Chacham goes first. Now, for this conversation, we got a problem here. You know what the problem is? Because the Rambam probably, almost for sure, rules that a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to leave Jerusalem. And the Avos to Rav Nosson says, a mamzer can't enter Jerusalem. So when the Mishnah states The mamzer and the kohen gadol are together. We're going to assume that literally 400 pages on this. We're going to assume that means literally, not to say spiritual law, a literal situation. Who comes first? What? There's no such thing. Either the mamzer can enter Jerusalem and the kohen gadol can't leave Jerusalem. We got a problem. And on that, there's another 300 pages of answers. What does the Rambam rule? Is one thing, and how do the twain meet? A priest precedes a Levite. Kohen beats a Levi. We do that every week, right? A Levi beats Yisrael. There's the Mishnah every week. An Israeli beats a Mamzer, right? Which makes sense. Right? A Mamzer beats a Giboni. It's going through all the laws. And then it says that this Mishnah, it's funny, it says Mamzer also, I forgot about that. If there's a Mamzer who's a Torah scholar and a high priest who's an ignoramus, a Mamzer Torah scholar precedes a high priest who's ignoramus, as Torah wisdom surpasses all. So this is we have, for us tonight, we have two issues. One, obviously, of nothing versus the Rambam. That cannot happen. That cannot happen. And they come up with 100 explanations of how it does happen. And we have to know what the Rambam actually said. When the Rambam said he can't leave Jerusalem, does that mean 100% can never leave Jerusalem? Or he can't sleep outside of Jerusalem? Maybe he can go for the afternoon for a visit. So all these become answers. And the second question is going to be, if you're going to say a mamzer, Talmudic scholar counts, I would assume that means his Torah is counted as a mitzvah. Because if a non-Jew studies Torah, are we going to say, oh, he studies Torah, we're going to value this? Well, it has to be within the confines of fulfilling the commandment. But it's my assumption. Which would mean that even though the mamzer, if we accept it, cannot enter Jerusalem, we cut out, making up a number, 85 mitzvahs, we cut out writing a Sefer Torah, make it 86 for some reason. Would a mamzer be obligated in Torah study? I think the Mishnah would be implying that a mamzer is obligated in Torah study to say he's good. Question, Charles.
So sometimes they talk about Jerusalem, they talk about different camps, like the Levite camp, the Israelite camp, so-and-so camp. So maybe there's parts of Jerusalem that are considered the precincts of the Holy Temple versus a little bit afterward. Excellent. Versus 20 miles out.
Among, again, 400 pages of work here. There's a lot of answers. One of the answers, if I remember correctly, is like what we have by the city of refuge, right? The Mikvah. Outside the city, there's 1,000 and 2,000 amas. Can't build there. Plant some stuff. What is that on base safe? What do we call that thing? When the accidental murder is hanging out in the 1,000 amas there, is he covered by home base or is that outside? So it becomes an issue. What are these 2,000? So some want to say that this doesn't that maybe Jerusalem has this 2,000 amas situation going on where, yeah, it's Jerusalem as far as the kohen gadol stepping out of it. He's still in Jerusalem, home base. But as far as the mamzer, I don't know if you meant this, as far as the mamzer going in, he's not really in Jerusalem. So that is one of the approaches to find a neutral site that maybe both fit in. Moshe Hubner will say, based on the Minchas Chinuch, have you heard the Sefer Minchas Chinuch? But based on the Minchas Chinuch Sefer, he understands based on Gemaras, unbelievable by the way, that second floors don't have the Kedusha of Jerusalem. It's applicable to many separate laws, he brings it up. Which is possible to mean in the original Moshe Hubner answer, that maybe the mamzer could jump over the first floor, fly on into the second floor. And that's not a problem of him being in Jerusalem, because that's not called the holiness of Jerusalem. But a kohen gadol who has a 2-floor house is allowed to go to a second floor. Possibly an extremely original answer. But now we're going back. We're scaling back a little bit. We have that a mamzer ran away and served idolatry. We have a shach saying that a mamzer is not obligated, disqualified, better word, to write a Sefer Torah. We have an Ovis to Rav Nosson saying that a mamzer is not allowed to enter Jerusalem, which means you have to assume he's potter, right? You can't tell a mamzer, bring a carbon pesach, because you can't bring a carbon pesach, not in Jerusalem. So if I ask you right now, according to Rav Nosson, is a mamzer obligated on the carbon pesach? Can't be. He has a steel wall of spirituality blocking him from entering Jerusalem. No carbon pesach. That's a lot of mitzvahs throughout the game. A lot of mitzvahs. So maybe he's not obligated on all the mitzvahs. So let's go now to one of the more controversial mitzvahs I want to discuss today. If a mamzer is obligated. This is actually openly discussed. Openly discussed. We have a Talmudic passage. 26a in Saita. Charles is going to put this on the screen. We have a lacha. A suspected adulteress. The husband is a little nervous. She's hanging around a specific guy. He's uncomfortable to look. He goes over to her. It's the law. He has two witnesses in front of him, and he tells the woman, listen, that guy, don't seclude yourself in a room with that guy. That's so far the rules. He has to have two witnesses. He has to specify the guy's name. And it's not don't talk to the guy, don't seclude yourself with a guy. And this woman secludes herself with a guy. But there's no witnesses to the act. Zero witnesses. If there's one witness to the act, nothing to discuss. But there's two witnesses, not necessarily the same two witnesses who say, I saw her in a room with that guy, with no one else, for X amount of time. That's called the Sota situation. Multiple mitzvahs in the Sota situation. Now we got to call her in. We got to tell her, listen, if you did something, admit it now. You'll lose $200 alimony, but you will live. Because no witnesses saw the act. It's embarrassing. The world knows, but we go home. That woman says, no, these witnesses are wrong, they're lying, they're crazy, nothing happened. Nothing happened. So then we take out the famous Mesaita. We're not going to go through all those details right now. And they force her to drink. And the Mishnah says, these words right here, that she's supposed to drink. And it says, I'm skipping where it says it originally, and it says all types of people are going to drink it. It says, hold on, where's it in English? Do it in English my way. It says that what happens is like this. If you make them drink, and she was innocent, she gets blessed with good children. That's how it is. We have to tell you an idea. The mission. You know who has to drink? Which situations? If there was a mamzer married to mamzeres, 100% legal marriage. Mamzer can't marry a regular Jew, but mamzer can marry mamzeres, 100% legal marriage. 100. If a mamzer is married to mamzeres, by the way, and she is a suspected adulterer, guess what? She's going to drink. The Gemara says, pshita, very crucial, obvious. Why in the world would you think she doesn't have to drink? Why would she not be obligated to drink? Of course she's obligated. This is a normal, regular, legal marriage. And she's suspected of adultery. Why would you not do it? Gemara says this. Obvious? Question mark. I'll tell you why. Because I would have assumed we don't want to produce more mamzerim. If they're going to get back together, because she drank and she was innocent, she's going to be blessed with more children. In the end, legal marriage, you know what you're producing? More mamzerim. We don't want in the world more mamzerim. That's what I would think. Kamash Malon, she drinks. Now, lawyer Michael, pay attention. What does the Kamash Malon? Yes, she drinks anyway. What is that teaching us? How do you understand those words? The Gemara said, it's obvious she should drink. No, I don't think it's obvious she drink. I don't want to create more mamzerim. She's going to drink. What does she's going to drink mean now? There's one of two ways to understand this. One way is, we don't care about producing more mamzerim. Nobody cares. We thought, oh, maybe I would not want to produce more mamzerim. No, you drink, produce more mamzerim. Or, no, we don't want to produce. That's true. We don't want to, but kamashma means drinking and producing children do not coincide. For example, 85-year-old woman is suspected by her husband of cheating. Do we make her drink? Yes. Why? Because the drinking and producing children are not integral to each other. So when it said, now it doesn't say this in the Gemara. So when the Gemara says, I want the mamzer to drink, mamzera to drink, married to a mamzer, what is it telling us? We don't care to produce more mamzerim? Oh no, we do care to produce more mamzerim, but drinking has nothing to do with producing children. Two fundamental ways to look at this Gemara with a massive difference. You know what the massive difference is? Do we want to produce more mamzerim? If you learned that the Gemara's question was, do we want to produce more mamzerim? Yes, we don't care to. That's the one step. That means we don't care to produce more mamzerim. Or do we say, no, we don't want to produce more mamzerim, but anyway, drinking has nothing to do with producing children. That means we don't want to produce more mamzerim. That's a debate how to understand this Gemara going back 300 years. What do they want to fundamentalize? That's not even a word. The debate on these people that are being produced. Do we want more of them? What mitzvahs are they obligated in? What are they obligated to produce other children? Is a mamzer, parents, obligated to have children? Or no? Guess what? A mamzer is not obligated in all the mitzvahs. You know one of them they're not obligated in? To produce children. You know why they're not obligated to produce children? We don't want them in Jerusalem, and we don't want to produce more mamzerim. Which means, of the 613 mitzvahs, The first mitzvah, according to some, how you divide the first, second, third, but the first mitzvah, according to the Parshias, Sefer HaChinuch, would be procreate, puruvu. Guess what? You know who's obligated to that mitzvah? A lot of people. You know who's not obligated to that mitzvah? A mamzer. A mamzer obligated to the mitzvah? No. You know why he's not obligated to the mitzvah? Because the Gemara might be saying, according to that line of thinking, we don't want to produce more mamzerim. We don't want them.
But
Go.
you do want to produce more children.
Excellent. So now the question is.
And Talmud Chacham.
Oh, so now we got a problem here, Michael. Did we not just say a mamzer Talmud Chacham is obligated in Torah study? We just assumed that based on the Mishnah saying that he goes before a Kohen Gadol, ignorant person. So wait a second. If he can't be produced, he's a Jew, he's obligated in Torah.
Counts a minion? Counts in a minion?
Counts at a minion. Why would we not say now? If you're going to hold, according to the view that he's not obligated in any mitzvahs, he will not be counted for a minion. We discussed this. Rosen on the camera?
No, not yet.
We discussed years ago, many times we've said this in this class, more than once, that when women complain, no women on the screen, when women complain that, why am I not counted for a minion? Am I a lesser person? The response that Rosen has said multiple times, he loved it. I gave it to him years ago and he said he used it, is that the only people who count are the people who are obligated. And therefore, the proof is, God forbid, someone in mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-G, who's not obligated part of that time before they bury the body. It's called an oinen. It's not a mourner, but it's part of the mourner the first 2 hours, where he's not obligated in the mitzvah of any mitzvahs, by the way. He's not obligated to daven as well. Does he count for the 10? No. Why does he count for the 10? He's a man. Because he's not obligated. If someone's drunk to a level where he doesn't count, and he's not obligated in a mitzvah, put himself in a bad position, not obligated, he doesn't count. So the obligation and the counting go together. Females are not obligated. That's not necessarily we consider them less, but that's why they don't count. They don't not count because they don't count. They don't not count because they're not obligated. Now, so here, if you're going to say that a mamzer doesn't not obligated in any mitzvahs, he doesn't count. But since we assume even the Shach said many mitzvahs, might not be obligated in many mitzvahs in Yerushalayim, might not, but he seems to be obligated in Torah study from a Mishnah, might be obligated, we're not sure how to read this now, is he obligated to produce children? We're not sure now, but he definitely is obligated in some mitzvahs, and we count for that.
Well, obligated in Sota, which means obligated in morality and obligated in husband-wife relations.
The only thing I would say, excellent, I'm going to say,
Probably obligated in laws of the Nida, Taras Mishpat.
Yeah, I didn't see that proof. That's a good proof.
Anywhere else, who cares?
Right. Good. Okay. I like it. Now, I think it's a good idea. So now we have a debate here of what mitzvahs are mamzerim obligated, and therefore the parents who created a mamzer who ran away to become an idolatrous person, that's not good for him. He's still obligated to mitzvahs. A few months ago, we had a funny situation in this class. Someone said they converted to Muslimism. Is that even a word? And the response on camera was, "You still can't eat chametz on Pesach, right? Because it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter how angry you are. You're still obligated. You say you don't believe in God. You don't care. You're still obligated. It doesn't make a difference. So now, a mamzer might be angry. I understand that. You're still obligated. You might not be obligated in everything. Maybe not Ruhu. Maybe not Beis HaMikdash. Maybe not writing a Sefer Torah. But it seems like even though writing a Sefer Torah might be tied into, I think it says before, writing a Sefer Torah might be tied into learning, it seems like a mamzer would be obligated in learning, even if he's not obligated in writing a Sefer Torah. Now, what I want to say now is similar as well. If a mamzer cannot produce a child physically, last week's class, then he can't be obligated in Puruhu, that we discussed last week. If he can't physically produce a child, he's not obligated in the mitzvah. One with a physical defect is not obligated in the mitzvah. So if he can't physically produce a child, he's not obligated. We said last week like this. If someone produces a mamzer, not is the mamzer obligated. If a person produces the mamzer, does he fulfill his obligation of having? Let's say a regular guy, not a mamzer, has an affair with a married woman. They're both obligated to mitzvahs, and they produce a mamzer. Did they fulfill the mitzvah of Puruhu? Not if the mamzer is obligated yet. We'll discuss it in a second. Now, if a mamzer, we said last week, cannot produce a child, then they can't fulfill the mitzvah. Because if someone produces a child who's infertile, that's the word, or whatever it is, that child does not count. So if a mamzer can't produce a child, he's out for sure. But what about the fact that a mamzer is not obligated in the mitzvah? If you want to say this based on this Gemara. If a mamzer is not obligated in Puruvu, would that mean the parents who created the Puruvu child, he cannot count as well? That's the theory of Ratz Chayes' son. Ratz Chayes' son wants to learn that you cannot fulfill your mitzvah with a mamzer. Someone cannot. Why? Because the mamzer is not obligated in the mitzvah. And you only can fulfill the mitzvah with people obligated in the mitzvah. The idea of Puruvu is to create a child who's obligated in Puruvu as well. That's what he wants to say. And therefore, since now the Ramah, we spoke last week, which is on the link, the Ramah 1:6 and Evidence, it says you are fulfill the obligation with a mamzer. But the Rambam doesn't say it. And it seems like many of the Rambam doesn't believe you cannot fulfill your obligation. Why not? Ratz Chayes comes along and says, I'll tell you why not. Because the mamzer is not obligated in Puruvu himself. Since he's not obligated himself, I have a Gemara, he doesn't say this. If I have a Gemara saying he might not be obligated, we weren't trying to be the Gemara side. Since he's not obligated, I have a new idea. Now, you must not only produce a child who physically produces a child, you must produce a child who is obligated to physically produce a child. The problem is, potential Moshe Hubner Kasha on Ratz Chayes' son. How do you fulfill the mitzvah Puruvu? With a boy and a girl. Is a girl obligated in Puruvu? Women are not obligated in mitzvah Puruvu. But you're obligated to have a girl. And when you have a girl, you fulfill the mitzvah, even though she's not in the mitzvah. So the same way Moshe Hubner wants to say that if someone has a girl, that's the way to fulfill the mitzvah, even though the girl is not obligated. You can have a mamzer who's not obligated to fulfill the mitzvah as well. Why is Ratz Chayes tying in the obligation of the child with the fulfillment through the child? I'm going too fast, Michael.
Just say the guy's in the Maharat.
Ratz Chayes' son. He wrote a letter.
The son or the father?
Son. The name of the sefer is either Sada or Stay, depends how you read it. Sada Yitzchak. In his first tshuva, why do I know this tshuva? Because the first tshuva, printed, I forgot offhand, 1873 or something, was written to someone you said you knew before, name of the sefer called Minchas Chinuch. And the Ratz Chayes' son wrote a letter to the Minchas Chinuch with notes, ha'aris, questions on the sefer Minchas Chinuch. And within the first mitzvah of Minchas Chinuch, of Puruvu, Minchas Chinuch discusses some of what we just said tonight. Is a mamzer obligated in Puruvu? Second question, can you fulfill your mitzvah through a mamzer? And the Ratz Chayes writes to him, you know why the Rambam doesn't say it? Of course you can't. You know why you can't? Because I'm not obligated. Ratz Chayes created this idea that you must only be able to fulfill through a child that is obligated in the mitzvah as well. That's how the Ratz Chayes. But I'm asking a question. What about the girl? Go, Mike. I thank you all. We covered a lot of ground there tonight, and Charles did ask to do mamzer again.